Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Carson. I am a survivor of toxic family and spiritual abuse. I prefer the term toxic family abuse, toxic spiritual abuse over narcissistic abuse for two reasons. One, narcissistic abuse implies that the abuse is by the narcissist and or by a narcissist, and while that might be true somewhat, a narcissist does not act alone. There is an entire system there to set up the scapegoat for the narcissist. One person can be an asshole to another person, but in order to do the kind of devastating damage to a person's life and commit what I call soul murder, you can't just be an asshole to them. You have to have a bunch of other people who have agreed to be assholes to them. And when it's a toxic system, that implies that the entire system itself, because within the toxic system, and I'll talk about this more later, there are some perfectly nice, well-meaning people who probably don't mean any harm, I don't think, but their role within the system is to keep the status quo the way that it is and keep the scapegoat quiet. These are the types of people who say things like, there must have been some misunderstanding, or, well, have you thought about your part in it? And let me tell you, as someone who did not break free of the toxic systems that I was a part of until I was 37, I'm 39 now, you do nothing but think about your part in it. You spend your entire life trying to keep anything like that from happening again. Maybe if I'm good enough, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, maybe then they'll like me. Or at least treat me like a fucking human being. Not gonna happen. So that's why I prefer to call it a toxic system. I am writing a book right now about my experiences with spiritual abuse. I was actually a member of the Episcopal Church for most of my life, off and on most of my life. And I had some pretty horrific abuse done to me by a priest who then became a bishop. And in the process of speaking out about it, I actually had some of his friends, old parishioners, and other priests bully and harass me online because I guess they thought that I was never going to talk about it. I think that they thought that again, my belief is that, the way that the church has kept me from talking about the abuse is to just tell everybody, well, she's crazy, she's making it up. Well, I have legal documents. I don't have them within my, I don't have them, but I know that there are legal documents out there that if I dug them up, I could prove that that's not the case. So I went to the church. I asked them to investigate this abuse. They gave me the runaround, and then they finally stopped responding after I was like, hey, sending me polite emails and telling me that you feel bad that I'm in pain really doesn't do anything to address the fact that you had a horribly abusive priest in your ranks and that you're not holding him accountable. So I decided to write this book to expose the people who did what they did, and because my son, who was trafficked away from me by said priest, will know the truth because he's been getting lied to his entire life. I began writing this book, and when I started writing it, I was just like pissed because I had been through so much. And, you know, it's like you get pushed and you get pushed and you get pushed. And there's always that one little thing that isn't necessarily worse than anything else that's happened to you. And it's probably not even as bad as the worst thing that someone in the system has done. But that's it. You realize, oh no, it's never going to change. They're never going to acknowledge what they did. So I started writing this book, and I'm writing it partly for my son so that he will know the truth of what happened. And I'm writing it partly because if the church and my family, which is the other toxic system that I was stuck in, aren't going to acknowledge what they did, then I'm just going to publicly talk about it. And I mean, they can't stop me from talking, right? Especially since I got a couple of members from the church decided that they were going to keep me from talking about it by bullying me online. And well, that was silly. Needless to say, I haven't heard from those people in a while, but I'm still talking. So I am doing this video as an intro to me, which I guess I kind of just did. Also because your first video is your worst video. And so when I do videos on heavier topics, I want it to not be my first video. My book is also to help people of toxic abuse, whether it's religious abuse or your family or whatever, not just detach from that system, which I recommend that anyone who's involved in a toxic system go no contact with everybody in that system. But I understand, me, I was stuck in that system for a long time because that was the only way that I could possibly hope to have a relationship with my son. Didn't matter. They still kept him from me, and didn't let him see me, particularly when I was doing well in my life, because then that wouldn't fit their narrative. But see, first video, worst video. I just had a total brain fart. Anyway, I started writing this book to talk about the things that I did. If you check out my channel, you'll see that I already have a ton of playlists, a ton of videos. Richard Grannon, Angie Atkinson, Michelle from Surviving to Thriving. There's some other people too. But you'll see I've got featured channels of people that have really helped me. And I've also got particular videos that I like and playlists set up. In the book and in this video series, which I guess is an accompaniment to the book, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the things that I did that I don't feel like are addressed a ton in the other videos. I don't want to go over the basics of what is a toxic system. Oh, by the way, the other reason I prefer the toxic system label versus narcissistic abuse label is because narcissistic abuse implies that the person that is the center of it, which in my case, there were a couple of people that were all kind of together, is a narcissist, has narcissistic personality disorder. And that's not necessarily true. They could have any of the cluster B disorders, or they could have none of the cluster B disorders. They could scale very high as borderline or narcissist, but not make enough of the qualifiers to technically have that disorder. And so I feel, like for a long time, when I first started studying this, I struggled a lot with, are they a narcissist? What's wrong with them? Is it narcissism? Let me go look up on narcissistic abuse. And what I found when I was reading was that if you try to use those qualifiers, you're going to drive yourself crazy. it doesn't really matter at the end of the day if they're a narcissist or if they're borderline or if they're a psychopath or if they just rate really, really high on any of those scales. It doesn't matter. What they're doing to you is abusive. And they're probably exploiting you. If you hadn't been exploited, you probably wouldn't be at this channel. The book is also a little bit of a memoir, because in addition to a lot of the things that I've done to work through it that I don't feel like are addressed, which is fine, they're not addressed because most of these channels are addressing the psychology of it, what's going on with you, how you can, change your ways of thinking and your behavior and all that. And that's great. That's great information. But I did a lot of other things that, in addition to that I know helped me. The first was that I got myself into a healthy system of people who love me and care about me, and they've seen me kind of at my worst, as because I do have complex PTSD because of what happened. And one thing that I've noticed is that they don't enable toxic behavior, just in general. I've just noticed that. But they also acknowledge, hey, you've really been through some shit, and I totally hear you. I totally understand why you're upset. But you don't have to take it out on me. But just know that I love you. And that's something that I had never gotten. I can't say I never got it. I have it from plenty of people who I knew before. But they were like childhood friends and stuff. It wasn't like a system. I'm in a dance troupe, and it's my dance troupe. It wasn't like I was in a system like a church or a family where that was kind of the prevailing attitude. And having that system in place, that healthy system, really helped me. Another thing that I'm going to talk about is alternative medicine, including, herbs and yoga and energy work and psychedelics. I'm a big, big, big believer in using natural psychedelics for therapeutic purposes. I'm going to be doing a video on what I learned taking mushrooms and taking DMT. Oh wow, it's 6. I thought it was 5. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of that because that's stuff that I think is a little bit of a taboo subject. I can understand why it's a taboo subject. First of all, there's a lot of reasons why it's a taboo subject. And I certainly get why it's a taboo subject. But all that I'll say on the subject of using psychedelics therapeutically, before I get off onto a tangent about how much they fucking helped me, and how much they've really knocked my head straight a little bit, is that psychedelics are called dangerous by people in the system. And by the system, I mean the psychiatric system, the legal system. And the reason why they say that is because they are dangerous for them. They're not dangerous for the people who are taking them to try and break free of toxic thought pattern. I mean, I guess if you go out and say, hey, I'm going to do mushrooms and my life is going to be fucking great. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. That's not how that works. But generally speaking, if you're taking it for therapeutic purposes, first of all, that's probably not going to be the only thing that you're doing. It shouldn't be. I hope it's not the only thing that you're doing. And second of all, you're going to go into the trip with self-help in mind, which means that you're going to be quiet, you're going to be contemplative, and you'll have things come to you. And I'm going to do some videos about that. So first video is the worst video, and now I guess I've got that behind me, right? So I look forward to meeting whoever decides to watch my little channel, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to getting to know you.